Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to the winter campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. This week we're going to continue the winter campaign with the fourth scenario in the Path to Carcosa campaign, the Unspeakable Oath. Last week when we played Echoes of the Past, we didn't get any experience. To make matters worse, Lily picked up another physical trauma while Monterey got to clear his mental trauma. And Lily's trauma is now making me watchful for my house rule on trauma. Anyway, now we have to move forward, and let's start by reminding everyone of what our tarot reading was for this scenario. So, on the good side, we kept Strength 8. So when the game begins, and we'll do this as usual as we go through opening hands, each investigator may play an asset from their hand at -2 cost. On the bad side, however, we have Wheel of Fortune 10. So once each agenda, the first time any investigator reveals an Elder Sign token, cancel it and treat it as a -5 instead. So now we need to be careful. So now where the Elder Sign is normally a sigh of relief, now it's basically, once per agenda, now it becomes a second tentacle. So we do need to be very mindful of that. Anyway, let's go ahead and set the scene for this scenario.
Scenario 4, The Unspeakable Oath. Check campaign log. If the followers of the sign have found the way forward, read Intro 1. Otherwise, skip to Intro 2.
Alright, so a double check of the campaign log reveals that the followers of the sign didn't find the way forward, so we go to Intro 2. Which I believe is...
Intro 2.
Perfect.
Over the course of the next few days, you delve into the evidence you've collected, hoping to find any information regarding Daniel Chesterfield, a stagehand during the previous production of The King in Yellow. As far as you can tell, he is the only surviving member of that production's cast and crew. The rest of them, that is, those for whom you can find any records at all, disappeared or died soon after opening night in a variety of fashions connected only by their morbidness. Freak accidents, suicides, vanishings. It would seem that Daniel is your only lead if you were to investigate further. According to the records you've found, he was admitted to Arkham Asylum many years ago. All documentation about Daniel's treatment seems to end there. You're unsure if he's even still alive. Perhaps he was cured and released. You were hoping to avoid this, but there seems to be only one way to find out. You collect your belongings and head downtown toward Arkham Asylum. Intro 3. As you enter the asylum, you stop to speak with the receptionist, though you feel your body urge to step deeper into the clutches of this madhouse. He gives you a confused expression as you tell him of the King in Yellow and of Daniel, but at your insistence, he pours through his file cabinet, eventually pulling out a stark white folder. Inside is a wealth of information about the patients admitted to the asylum, medical records, psychiatric evaluations, and the like. You recognize a few of the faces as he flips through the pages. Daniel Chesterfield, yes? He is admitted under the special care of Dr. Mintz, but you can't see him. His level is restricted to staff only. You argue and insist to be led into the patient wing, knowing that Daniel must hold the key to understanding what is really going on. The receptionist gives you a pitying smile and relents, nodding to the security guards nearby. Oh, of course, he says with all the honesty of a street peddler. I will schedule a meeting for you with Dr. Mintz so you can speak with him about Daniel. These gentlemen will see you in. Believe that you will soon get the answers you seek. You are escorted into the patient wing of Arkham Asylum. Check campaign log. If Constance's domain is listed under VIPs interviewed, proceed to Constance's information. Otherwise, skip to setup.
I double-checked the campaign log while I was still talking, and we only have one Ashley Clark listed as interviewed from The Last King, so we don't get Constance's information, so we proceed right to setup. But anyway, next up, let's go ahead and go through our starting hands. In a change of pace this scenario, Monty is actually going to be our lead investigator. So we'll start off with the only asset in his hand, which we'll get to play at -2 cost. We have lockpicks, so this will be a 1 cost to play because of this tarot card. As an action, exhaust lockpicks to investigate. Your plus agility for this investigation. If you don't succeed by at least 2, discard lockpicks. Now, before I jump too further into Monty's hand, just as a reminder, I did have a small mishap last week where I wasn't sure how committing worked when you have these tests that are plus another stat. So unless the card specifically says you use this stat instead of this one, so say as an example here, if we were using agility instead of lore, then when it came time to commit, we can only commit agility icons. But in this case, the test happens to be plus agility, but it's still an investigation test, so you would still be testing lore. But anyway, we'll go ahead and play that out for one resource. Then we have a copy, speaking of plus a stat, Slip Away. I forgot to mention, by the way, Lockpicks is a lore on commit, but that's not relevant here. Slip Away is a 2-cost to play, agility, and lore on commit. Evade. Add your lore to your skill value for this evasion attempt. If you succeed by at least 2 or more and the evaded enemy is non-elite, it doesn't ready during the upkeep phase. So where I was talking about the lockpicks being an investigation plus lore, or plus agility, this is an evasion plus lore, but it's still an agility test, so only agility icons count. Next up we have Swift Reflexes. 2 cost to play, 2 agility on commit. Fast to play during any investigator's turn except during an action. Immediately take an action as if it were your turn. This action does not count toward the number of actions you can take each turn. Then we have a copy of Quick Thinking, question mark on commit. If the skill test is successful by 2 or more, after it resolves, you may immediately take an action as if it were your turn. This action does not count toward the number of actions you can take each turn. And last up, we have a copy of Deduction Level 0. Lore on commit, it's a skill. If the skill test is successful while investigating a location, discover 1 additional clue at that location. I'll talk about the flavor text when we actually go to play the card. Then in Lily's hand, we start off with the asset she's going to play at -2 cost. Tetsuo Mori, too noble for his own good. He's normally a 3, but he's going to be a 1 cost to play this time. Lore on commit. Tetsuo Mori may be assigned damage and or horror dealt to other investigators at your location. As a reaction, when Tetsuo Mori is defeated, choose an investigator at your location. That investigator searches either their discard pile or the top 9 cards of their deck for an item asset and adds it to their hand. Shuffle the deck if it's searched. Alright, and we have 2 and 2 health, 2 sanity on Soak, and it takes the ally slot. So we'll go ahead and play that out for 1 experience, or for 1 resource. Next up we have another asset that would have been a strong candidate, but I didn't have any arcane slots to go with it. The Dragon Pole, 3 cost to play, combat on commit. You have 1 additional arcane slot. As an action fight, you get +1 lore or +1 combat for this attack for each of your arcane slots that's filled. If at least 2 of your arcane slots are filled, this attack deals +1 damage. Then we have a copy of Read the Signs. 2 cost to play, will and lore on commit. Investigate plus will. You may ignore any effect or keyword on your location which would trigger during this investigation. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue. Then we have a copy of Guts. So this is a 2 will commit. If this test is successful, draw 1 card. And we have our ever-reliable Drawn to the Flame. Draw the top card of the encounter deck, then discover 2 clues at your location. Okay, so next up we'll go ahead and take a look at our Act and Agenda decks. Agenda 1A, Locked Inside. The patient wing of the asylum is far quieter and lonelier than you had expected. The halls reek of chemicals and body odor. As soon as you are escorted inside, the doors behind you are closed and locked tight. We only need 2 doom to advance this agenda, so we're probably going to fly through that. Then for our Act, Act 1A, Arkham Asylum. Aside from the few patients giving you a wide berth, there aren't any orderlies or doctors around to speak with. Looks like you'll have to find Mr. Chesterfield on your own. We need 3 per investigator or 6 clues to advance. And we have to remember also, during each agenda, the first Elder Sign is a -5. So, finally, with that, Lily and Monty will move over to the map and we'll move with them. As usual, once a location becomes relevant with a connecting location, I will go through it. I'm not going to go through everything right at the jump, but we do have 7 locations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I actually have 8 locations to start with. Relevant right now are our two patient wing locations. So each of our investigators can start at one of those wings. I'm going to go ahead and split them up. So Monty is going to start at the Western Patient Wing. We'll take a look here. It looks like the patient wings will both have the same flavor text on them, so we'll just review. I'll go through the unrevealed side once, and then we'll reveal it. Then I'll reveal each location. So Asylum Hall's Western Patient Wing. The pleasant atmosphere of the reception area disappeared as soon as Dr. Mintz shut the thick iron door behind them. The temperature dropped to a clammy chill, and a foul, sharp stench hung in the air. Mallory O'Meara, the investigators of Arkham Horror. And the Western Wing from Monty reveals to Shroud of 3, 2 clues. Each lunatic enemy at this location gets +1 horror value. As they walked through the meandering stone halls of the sanitarium, Carolyn began to feel uneasy. It seemed like it would be very easy to get lost. Mallory O'Meara, the investigators of Arkham Horror. So we'll get the 2 clues for that. And then Lily's patient wing. She's in the eastern wing, so she finds Shroud of 3, no clues. As an action to take 1 horror, evade. Automatically evade a lunatic enemy at this location. And hey, look at that. The flavor text on this side is exactly the same as well. So, now that we've got all that set up, we're ready to start the scenario, and as our lead investigator, we'll start off with Monty, and we'll actually stay right here at the map. Okay, job 1 is going to be to get those clues off of that location. So, I think we'll go ahead and exhaust lockpicks to investigate here. Remember, our investigate here is plus agility, but only lore icons count. So, since I want to try to get those clues in one shot, I'm going to commit deduction to this test. So that's going to give me a 9, 10 to a 3, so I'm up 7 trying to get both clues. -1 gets me both clues, and I don't have to discard lockpicks because I still succeeded by 6. That was action 1 for Monty. Action 2, and I'm actually going to remember to put an action marker on Monty's starting location. Action 2 will head over to the mess hall. So on the unrevealed side on the mess hall, a wide open doorway leads into the asylum's mess hall, where patients would have their meals. It's quieter than you expected. There are no chairs scuffling, dishes clanking, or patients speaking with one another. This reveals into Shroud of 2, 4 clues. Forced. After you successfully investigate the mess hall, choose and discard 1 card from your hand. Rows of tables are covered in dirty dishes and stale food. You get the feeling they took mess too literally here. Victory 1. Now I wish I hadn't used that deduction, but hindsight, as they say. Actually, no, we might be able to work around that, but I'm going to need to get Lily over here for that. Anyway, the kitchen is now somewhat relevant as well, so we'll take a quick look at the unrevealed side of the kitchen. The door leading into the kitchen is locked. You cannot enter the kitchen. The narrow door in the back of the mess hall is locked. The scent that strikes you from behind the door is foul and repugnant. So we can't get into the kitchen right now. That was action 2. Action 3 will be to investigate, and I'll commit quick thinking to this. So I'm at a 4, I'm at a 5 to a 2, I'm up 3. If I succeed by 2 or more, I get to take an action as if it were my turn. -1 gets me a clue. I will have to discard a card. But I will get to take I immediately get to take an action as if it were my turn. So, on that action that I'm going, so that was action 3, but this is a free action from Quick Thinking. So I'm going to draw a card, which means Monty will draw. Leo De Luca, 6 cost to play. Lore on commit, you may take an additional action during your turn. I'll go through the flavor text when I actually play him. But anyway, that will do it for Monty. Lily's turn, we're going to stay right here at the map. So for action 1, she's going... Actually, we'll mark her location as well. Action 1, we'll move her over to the infirmary. The scratched plaque on this wooden door reads, Infirmary. This must be where the doctors treat their patients. Then this will reveal into... Shroud of 3, 2 clues. There's an action, heal 1 damage and take 1 direct horror, or heal 1 horror and take 1 direct damage. Limit once per round. Our methods are proven. Victory 1. So we'll get the 2 clues there, and then I almost forgot, at the end of Monty's turn, we marked his location with an extra icon, extra rogue icon, so remembering his special ability, we either get to draw a card or gain a resource. I will actually gain a resource because I'm planning on being able to play Leo on his next turn. But anyway, so that was action 1 for Lily. Action 2, we'll go ahead and pay 2 resources, and we'll try to read the signs. So similarly, we'll try to get those clues in one shot. So we're investigating plus will. You may ignore any effect or keyword on a location which will trigger yada yada yada. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue. A grisly future is laid before you. Do you turn away or do you embrace it? Now, I would love to be able to add the guts in my hand to this, but remember, this is an investigation test that happens to be plus will. So the guts icons won't help on that, which means Lily is up 2 trying to get both clues. Skull. Okay, so action 1 was to move. Action 2 is read the signs. Skull is -1. If you fail, randomly choose an enemy from among the set-aside monster enemies and place it beneath the act deck without looking at it. So we do get both clues off of the location. Now, just to explain a little bit of what that effect is actually doing, as part of setup, we had to set the lunatic and monster enemies aside. So they're actually not in the encounter deck yet. Just in case anybody's wondering what's going on there. Then action 3, Lily will move back over to the Asylum Hall's Eastern Patient Wing. We'll plan on moving her over and trying to help out, and probably trying to help out in the mess hall. But anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase. First enemy phase of the game, nothing happens because there are no enemies in play. So we'll go ahead and start readying everything. I'll move that over as Monty's starting location. Ready all the action tokens off camera. And then we'll also ready lockpicks. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Monty will gain 1 resource and go to 6. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 3. Monty will draw. Hypochondria, oh joy. Revelation, add hypochondria to your threat area. Forced, after you take 1 or more damage, take 1 direct horror. 2 actions to discard it. Fantastic. And that will be in Lily's discard pile. And then Lily will draw. Another copy of Guts, which we couldn't use on our last turn, but alas, that couldn't be helped. So that will bring us into the Mythos phase. We'll get our first Doom up on the agenda. And then Monty will draw. A roach swarm, X23, where X is the shroud of roach swarm's location. A mass of skittering roaches completely covers the floor, leaving a trail of sticky brown ooze in its wake. So now we need to evade that before we can play Leo. Oop, wrong deck. Lily gets an encounter card as well, so Lily will draw. Ooze and Filth. Revelation, put Ooze and Filth into play next to the agenda deck. Each location gets +1 Shroud. At the end of the round, discard Ooze and Filth. Right, so that 2 is effectively a 3 now for Monty. But that can't be helped. That will do it for the Mythos phase. In the investigation phase, we'll actually start off with Monty and we'll drop down to his play area. Monty's first priority needs to be evading that roach swarm. So action 1, we're going to try to evade it. We're up 2, and I don't think I have anything I want to commit to this right now. So, up 2. -2 lets him evade the roach swarm, so that's fortunate. Then action 2 will dump his resources into playing Leo De Luca. So now we have an extra action during his turn, and then the flavor text. I was born in Mississippi. Louisiana just sounded better. Then we'll grab an extra icon up for Leo. Action 3 will take us over to the map. Action 3 will bring Monty over to the Asylum Hall's Western Patient Wing. And then action 4 will bring us up to the yard. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. The fresh air and the illusion of freedom makes the asylum's courtyard a common gathering place for patients. Through the barred windows, dead tree branches sway in the wind. Gray, overcast skies trap the asylum in a dull limbo. Then this reveals into Shroud of 1, 2 clues. While you are investigating the yard, it gets +1 Shroud for each horror on you. Action, if there are no clues on the yard, take 1 damage. Remember that you incited a fight amongst the patients. So we'll get the 2 clues for that. And then relevant text here on the garden. The gate leading into the garden is locked. You can't enter the garden. Okay, so that will do it for Monty. Before we go into Lily's turn, I always forget this, because in Monty's special ability, he started 2 locations. He ended up 2 locations away from his starting location, so he will gain a resource and draw a card. So Monty will draw. Clasp of Black Onyx, a gift unlooked for. 1 cost to play. While Clasp of Black Onyx is in your hand, increase the cost of each other card in your hand by 1. It was neither Arabic nor Chinese, nor as I found afterwards did it belong to any human script. Robert W. Chambers, The Yellow Sign, The King in Yellow. Thankfully it's only a 1 cost to play, so I wonder how that would work. For an item asset, you probably could skip past that with Tetsuo as long as you have other items to pick from. Where it would be probably a case similar to Arcane Initiate looking for spells, where if a weakness happens to be a spell and that's the only spell you find, you would have to take it in that case. But anyway, I'm getting a little off track there because we have Lily's investigation phase to go through. Her investigation phase will be action 1 to the Asylum Hall's Western Patient Wing, action 2 to the yard, and action 3 she will investigate at a Shroud of 1. She's up 1, and I don't think Monty can't give her any help, so up 1. Actually, no, she's even. Because I forgot about Ooze and Filth being in play. So I guess, do we still investigate, or do we just go digging for a card? I don't want to waste a draw into the flame on what's effectively going to be a Shroud of 1 next turn, and Monty will probably rip that clear of clues next turn. You know what? I think I still am going to investigate just because I can advance the act a little faster. So, at even. Hey, a +1 gets her a clue. Nicely done, Lily. Alright, so I think we'll probably start next round by advancing the act. So there's no point to doing it now, but anyway. Alright, so that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, our only enemy is the Roach Swarm, but Monty managed to evade him, so we'll go ahead and start readying everything here. Thankfully, that Roach Swarm is not a hunter. Go ahead and flip over all of our action tokens as well, and then we'll move back up top for the Upkeep Phase. We're back up top for the Upkeep Phase. Monty gains 1 resource, goes to 2. Lily gains 1 resource, goes to 4. Monty draws. Lucky Cigarette Case, 2 cost to play, will on commit. Reaction, after you succeeded a skill test by 2 or more, exhaust Lucky Cigarette Case to draw a card and takes the accessory slot. Lily draws. Butterfly Swords level 2, 3 cost to play, combat and agility on commit. Action, fight, you get +1 combat for this attack. After this attack, you may exhaust Butterfly Swords to fight again, plus agility. That attack deals +1 damage. But we are... Okay, end of round, Ooze and Filth goes away. And on the Mythos phase, we do advance the agenda. So Agenda 1A, locked inside. Alright, so... The Patience. Speaking with the Patience is proving more difficult than you had assumed. They eye you cautiously and refuse to answer any of your questions, backing away or fleeing if confronted. Either they're not used to guests or something about you is causing them a considerable amount of distress. Some act like animals backed into a corner, and you think at any moment they might strike. Shuffle the discard pile in each of the set-aside lunatic enemies into the encounter deck. The lead investigator must randomly choose an enemy from among the set-aside monster enemies and place it beneath the act deck without looking at it. So we'll go ahead and get the monster enemies first. So here's the stack of monsters. Go ahead and give this a shuffle. And a cut. And we'll place that one beneath the act deck. And then we'll grab the lunatic enemies along with the discard pile, which consisted of Ooze and Filth, and we'll shuffle the lunatics in. And a cut. And we'll take a look at our new agenda. Agenda 2A, Torturous Descent. The longer you spend in this hellish place, the more you want to leave. Already it has felt like days. You fear that if you are stuck here much longer, you will become like the Patience, a husk of your former self, unruly and dangerous. Need 7 Doom to advance that. And Monty will draw. Whispers in your head, doubt. Peril hidden. Revelation, secretly add whispers in your head, doubt to your hand. Can't play events. 2 actions to discard Whispers in Your Head, Doubt. And then Lily will draw. Young Psychopath. 2 combat, 2 health, 3 evade. Forced. After Young Psychopath engages you, you must either take a horror or Young Psychopath gets +3 fight until the end of the investigation phase. Her eyes widened and she picked up the knife. 1 and 1 on attack. So we are going to take 1 horror. Thankfully, in this case, the horror is not direct. So that's what Tetsuo's here for. Anyway, we have an open player window as we get ready to leave the Mythos phase. So during that, we'll go ahead and spend our 6 clues and advance the act. All right. Act 1A. Key to the basement. Turning a corner, you nearly bump into a nurse with light brown hair and sharp features. You tell her about the violent patients and the strange things you've seen, but she doesn't listen. When you inquire about Daniel, she informs you that he is a patient of Dr. Mintz and that he resides in the secured basement level. Unfortunately, she refuses to let you into that area of the asylum. The investigators must decide, choose one. Any investigator tests Combat 4 to intimidate her into giving you the keys. If successful, advance to Act 2A. If failed, you must choose an option you have yet to choose. Any investigator tests Agility 4 to steal the keys from her. If successful, yada yada yada. And any investigator tests Lore 4 to persuade her to give you the keys, yada yada yada. You knock her over and grab the keys by force. Grab the keys. Remember that you took the keys by force. Advance to Act 2A. So I think the best chance we're going to have here is Monty's first going to try to steal the keys, testing agility. And to that, as much as I want to use this, I can't right now, so I will commit swift reflexes to the agility test to go up 3 because it's a 4 test. Monty is at base 5, and then swift reflexes brings him up to 7, so he's up 3. And we get tentacle touched. Fantastic. So we aren't able to steal the keys. Now I think Monty will try to persuade her to give us the keys. Unfortunately, I don't think we have any lore to commit to this test. Nope, so Monty is at even trying to do this. -2 says no, not happening. So I think we'll just knock her over and grab the keys. We tried stealth, we tried to persuade her, but now I think we're done with it. We're just going to take the keys by force. So that'll advance us to Act 2A. Act 2A, the really bad ones. There are a couple of different versions depending on if we took the Onyx clasp or not. In this case, we did, so this is the agenda we're using. Daniel is somewhere in the secured basement where the most dangerous patients are kept. Now that you have the key, you can explore this area of the asylum. Ignore the text on the unrevealed side of Arkham Asylum locations. Objective: find the patient confinement location with Daniel Chesterfield. You will be instructed when to advance. Okay. So now we know we need to get down to the basement and look for Daniel down there. So anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase, we need to get this young psychopath off Lily so we can get moving. So let's start off with Lily in her play area. Action 1 for Lily is actually we're going to initiate a play action, which will trigger the attack of opportunity, which the young psychopath will do 1 damage and 1 horror. Tetsuo will eat the attack of opportunity. And then we will have I actually have the item I want in Lily's hand, so I'm going to send Monty into his deck. Because I can choose an investigator at my location. An investigator searches either their discard pile or the top 9 of their deck for an item and gets it. And I'm looking to give Monty a weapon as well so he can defend himself. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So first up we find a slip away, which is an event, so I can't take that. Next up, Milan Christopher, who I want to take, but I can't either. Pathfinder, which I also want to take, but I can't here. Backstab, see previous comment. Sneak by, repeat after me, kids. I want to take that, but I can't. Another Pathfinder, great. And I'm trying to find Monty's whip here, or something he can use to defend himself with. Jackpot. So I'm probably taking the bullwhip since that looks like it's going to be the only card I can take. Lone Wolf, which I also can't take. And a deduction level 2, so bullwhip it is. Alright, so we'll take a look at the bullwhip when I go to play it in a minute. But we'll spend the 3 resources to play out Lily's butterfly swords. In a practice grip, they're an extension of the empty hand, and this takes both hand slots. Then as a fast coming out of Lily's first action in the open player window, Monty will play the aforementioned trusty bullwhip. 2 cost to play, 2 agility and question mark on commit. Fast Monterey Jack deck only. As an action, fight. This attack uses agility instead of combat. If this attack succeeds, you may exhaust trusty bullwhip to either automatically evade the attacked enemy or deal +1 damage for this attack. So we do get to play that out. That was action 1. Action 2, we'll go ahead and use the butterfly swords to fight. So we're at +1, so 4, 5, 6 to 2. We're up 4 for this first attack. +1 puts a damage on the psychopath. And then I'll exhaust the butterfly swords to fight again. This time I'm plus agility. So 7, 8. I'm up 6 this time. I'm trying to take it out. Actually, yeah. Yeah. Just making sure I have my math right. -2 takes out the psychopath, thankfully. And then Lily, for action 3, will investigate up 1. -1 still gets her that last clue. So I'm not sure what we're going to need clues for right now, but it's helpful to have them. So anyway, that will do it for Lily. Monty's turn will take us over. Will take us over to the map. Action 1, Monty's actually going to take 1 direct damage. Take 1 damage since there are no clues on the yard right now. We'll incite a fight among the patients. That was action 1. Action 2. We'll play... Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Okay, hold up. I actually just remembered, because of the clasp in my hand, that the Bullwhip would have cost 1 more. So I'm actually going to pay 1 resource instead to play the Clasp of Black Onyx and get that out of my hand. I totally spaced on that. Action 2 will move down to the Asylum Hall's Western Patient Wing. Action 3 will end up at the Eastern Patient Wing. And then Action 4 will take another resource. So now that we've got that figured out, as a fast action coming out of that last action, Monty will spend his 2 resources. Now he'll play the whip. So now we have the whip in play and everything's straight. Then for the end of his turn, since we moved 2 locations away from his starting location up at the yard, once again he will gain a resource and draw a card, where Monty draws. Sneak By, 0 cost event to play, 2 agility on commit, evade. When this action begins, gain 2 resources. But we can't play resources until we get that delusion out of his hand, and that might be next turn, barring anything crazy. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Enemy phase, the only enemy right now is the Roach Swarm, because Lily managed to take out the young psychopath. So we'll go ahead and ready everything up. Lily and Monty will trade starting locations for next round. We'll flip over all the action tokens. And then we'll move back up top for the Upkeep phase. We're back up top for the Upkeep phase. Monty gains 1 resource, goes to 2, as does Lily. Monty draws. Pathfinder, this is music to my ears. This is a sight for sore eyes, I should say. 3 cost to play, agility on commit. As a fast action, during your turn, if you're not engaged with any enemies, exhaust Pathfinder, move to a connecting location. And then Lily draws. Meditative Trance, 2 costs to play, will and lore on commit. For each of your arcane slots that's filled, right now that's none, either heal 1 damage or 1 horror. Alright, Mythos phase, we got our first Doom on Agenda 2A. Monty draws. Another young psychopath, and he'll take a horror for that. Alright. Lily draws. A maniac, oh joy. 3 combat, 4 health, 1 evade. Humanoid lunatic. Forced, after maniac engages you, take 1 damage and deal 1 damage to maniac. Get out! Get out! Get out of my head! So we'll take 1 damage, which will bring Lily up to 3 damage. We need to be very careful about that. And the maniac takes 1 damage as well. So I think Lily's objective I think we're going to have to do some enemy killing this turn. But we're into the investigation phase now, where Lily, we'll start off with Lily and we'll start in her play area. Action 1, we'll use the butterfly swords to attack the maniac. So +1 combat. 4, 5, 6, we're up 3. We have to remember too, from the Wheel of Fortune, the first Elder sign each agenda is -5. So that's a fail, and I'm going to mark that with a... we'll mark that with a... we'll use one of Monty's extra tokens. I'm going to need to get another set of these. Just so we know that, okay, now the Elder Sign is back to normal. So anyway, Action 2 will run that back. I wasn't going to use the exhaust effect on the butterfly swords, because that's a you may, and I want to try to take this thing out if I can. So, starting up 3. -2 is another damage on the Maniac. And now we will exhaust the Butterfly Swords to try to take the Maniac out. So now we're plus agility, trying to do 2 damage. So we're at 8. Yep, we're at 8 to 3, so we're up 5. A 0 takes out the Maniac. So that's very nice. Then action 3 for Lily will take us over to the map. Action 3 for Lily will bring us down to the Western Patient Wing. That will do it for Lily in the investigation phase. Monty's turn in the investigation phase is going to start us at his play area. If I don't take this young psychopath out on the express plan, Hypochondria is going to do Monty in pretty quickly. So we're going to start off with the Bullwhip. So action 1, we're going to fight with the Bullwhip using agility instead of combat. I'm up 3, and the Elder Sign is at normal strength. The Elder Sign is back to normal. -1 means the attack succeeds, and then I'll exhaust the trusty Bullwhip to take out the young psychopath. So that was action 1. Actions 2 and 3 will be to discard Whispers in Your Head Doubt. And then action 4 will take us over to the map. Action 4 is we're going to move Monty up to the basement hall. Remember, because we advanced to Act 2A, we get to ignore the text on the unrevealed side. So you might remember that I actually had basement halls down here originally. It looks like I'm actually going to have more room if I put basement halls up here with what I think is going to happen. So we'll move up into the basement halls and we'll see what is revealed here. We get to look at the flavor text, actually. Dank air drifted out of some of the darker hallways. Carolyn asked, "Do some of these passageways lead underground?" Nurse Heather nodded. "It is a very old building, Doctor." Mallory O'Meara, the investigators of Arkham Horror. And then we reveal this into Shroud of 4, 2 clues. Forced, after the basement hall is revealed, put the 4 set-aside patient confinement locations into play. A cramped stone staircase leads deep underground to the basement level of the asylum. Cries and howls of anguish torment you from behind the hall's many iron doors. You can't imagine what it would be like to live your days in this place. Victory 1. So we'll get the 2 clues. And then we'll get our 4 copies of patient confinement right here. And they're all going to have the same flavor text on them, so we'll give them a quick shuffle on camera. All right, I need 4 more connecting arrows. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. All right, so we'll go 1, 2, 3. And then before we put the last one down, we'll take a quick look at patient confinement. As an additional cost to enter patient confinement, you must spend 1 clue. The heavy metal door is firmly shut and locked from the outside. The thin slit that would allow you to peer inside the cell is stuck. Okay, we'll try to move that somewhat out of the way. Now I'll get the connecting arrows in place. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that was all 4 of Monty's actions. So at the end of Monty's turn, he will gain a resource to go up to 3. Because he only moved 1 location away from his starting location. Anyway, in the enemy phase, our only enemy is still the Roach Swarm, but thankfully that is not a hunter. So with that, we'll go ahead and start readying everything up here. Move their starting locations. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Monty gains 1 resource, goes to 4. Lily gains 1 resource, goes to 3. Monty draws. Dr. Milan Christopher, you might be a sight for sore eyes. You get +1 lore, and after you successfully investigate, gain 1 resource. Lily will draw. An enchanted blade level 3 that we don't really need right now because we've got the butterfly swords out. Uses 3 charges. As an action fight, you get +2 combat for this attack. If you succeed, you may spend 1 charge to empower the blade, dealing +1 damage for this attack. If this blade is empowered and this attack defeats an enemy, draw 1 card and heal 1 horror. Takes up a hand and an arcane slot, so we'd have to discard the butterfly swords to play it. But anyway, Mythos Phase. Doom on the agenda goes up to 2. Monty draws. Mad Patient. Spawn at the nearest asylum halls. Pray most remaining sanity. Force. When you attack Mad Patient, take 1 horror. Sometimes the most terrifying of foes is one's own mind. 1 damage on attack. The nearest asylum halls from him is actually the Eastern Patient Wing, which means Lily will have to deal with, probably have to deal with that, and I think she will. I was planning on bringing Lily toward Monty anyway, but Lily draws. Surge, descend into madness. If you have at least 3 horror on you, lose 1 action. She froze and her throat clenched. Her eyes began to water. Her vision spiraled and blurred. Then, at long last, she fully understood. So Lily has no horror on her right now, which means we don't lose an action, but it surges into the walls closing in. Revelation, test Will X, where X is the shroud value of your location. If you fail, you must either take 1 horror for each point you failed by, or randomly choose 1 enemy from among the set-aside monster enemies and place it beneath the act deck without looking at it. So X right now for Lily is 3. I think I've got 2 copies of Guts that I've been waiting for on this. So we'll commit, not the Dragon Pole, although that can probably go to a combat test. But Guts puts her up 2, and I think that's the most dangerous token in the bag right now. I think that makes... We'll actually commit the Meditative Trance as well. I'll go up 3, just in case something goes totally bonkers. But anyway... Up 3. -2 means I pass, so that goes away, and I get to draw a card from Guts. So Lily draws. Unexpected Courage. Max 1 committed per skill test, 2 wildcard icons on commit. Anyway, that will do it for the Mythos Phase. Investigation Phase, we'll start with Lily, and that will take us over to the map. Action 1 for Lily will move into the Asylum Hall's Eastern Patient Wing, make friends with this mad patient. Action 2 will use the butterfly swords to attack it, so 4, 5, 6 to 2, we're up 4. Cultist can't be good. -X, where X is the number of horror on you. Right now that's actually 1, because we do have to take a horror when we attack Mad Patient, but we do succeed to put the damage on it. Actually, I just thought of something. This might have been a bad idea to use the butterfly swords to do this, but we will hit him again. So we have to take another horror from that. I will have to double check that on a ruling, but I think this counts as 2 separate attacks. So anyway, now we're plus agility, so we're 8 to 2, we're up 6, trying to take him out. -1 does take out the Mad Patient. And then action 3, we'll move down to the basement hall and join Monty. So that will do it for Lily. Monty's turn can very easily start over here. So for action 1, he's going to spend his 4 resources to play out Dr. Milan. While I truly pray that this nightmare is just a singular abomination, I must admit that I am exhilarated by the possibility that this is but one specimen of a new genus. 1 health, 2 sanity on Soak. We don't have to discard Leo De Luca because he's got charisma, because Monty has a charisma. Action 2 will investigate, so we're up 1. Yeah, that's where we'll investigate, up 1. -2 fails. Action 3 will run the investigate back. Actually, let's go with... We'll exhaust the lockpicks to investigate. So now we're plus agility, so we're at 10 to 4, we're up 6. So of course we get tentacle touched. Fantastic. Which loses lockpicks. And action 4 will run and investigate back. So we're still up 1. Elder Sign is +1. If you started this location 1 or more... Actually, yeah, let's take a proper look at Monty's Elder Sign. See if I can pop this out. There we go. Alright, so the Elder Sign for Monty. +1. If you started this round 1 or more locations away from your current location, either gain a resource or draw a card. Unfortunately, we stayed here, so we do get a clue. And we get a resource because of Milan. Anyway, that will do it for Monty. Now we can get somewhat moving on the next round, but that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, the Roach Swarm is still our only relevant enemy. So we'll go ahead and start resetting everything. And then we'll also reset Butterfly Swords. And then we'll move back up top for the Upkeep Phase. We're back up top for the Upkeep Phase. Monty will gain 1 resource and go to 2. Lily will gain 1 and go to 4. Monty will draw. Pilfer, 4 cost to play. Agility, lore on commit. Investigate using agility instead of lore. If you succeed, discover 2 additional clues at your location. And Lily will draw. Eye of Chaos uses 3 charges. As an action, spend 1 charge to investigate. Investigate using will instead of lore. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue at this location. If a curse token is revealed during this investigation, you may discover 1 clue at a connecting location or place 1 charge on Eye of Chaos. Okay, that will bring us into the Mythos phase, so we'll get our 3rd Doom up on the agenda. And Monty will draw. Ooze and Filth, putting it into play next to the agenda deck. Each location gets +1 Shroud. At the end of the round, discard Ooze and Filth. Lily draws. Corrosion. Revelation, discard item assets from play and or your hand with a total printed resource cost of at least X, where X is the shroud value of your location. If no locations are discarded or no cards are discarded by this effect, corrosion gains surge. You suddenly drop the object on the ground and watch as it erodes and turns to dust before your eyes. So the shroud value here is 4, which means, well, we discard two items that we don't need from our hand. The Dragon Pole and the Enchanted Blade. They would have been good as commits, but now they're not needed for that. Now we get to keep the Butterfly Swords. Anyway, that will do it for the investigation, or for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase now. We're going to try to reveal some of these patient confinement locations. We'll start with Monty as we move over to the map. With Shrouds elevated this round, I think the best idea is to get a couple of these patient confinement locations open. So for action 1, Monty will actually move up to this patient confinement location. And we'll find patient confinement occupied cell, Shroud of 5 or 6 because of ooze and filth, 1 clue. As an action, test will or combat 2 to release the patient here from his bonds. If you succeed, he howls like a wolf and tears off through the basement. Remember that you released a dangerous patient. So we'll get the clue for that. Monty's at a 2, so he's probably not succeeding at that. Lily might have a better chance at that. But what I will try to... that's a Shroud of 6. Yeah, I don't know if we're getting that clue. So that's action 1. Action 2 will be to take a... Action 2 will be to take a resource. Action 3 will go ahead and play Pathfinder. During your turn, yada yada yada, if you're not engaged with any enemies, exhaust Pathfinder, move to a connecting location. Searches after horror haunt strange far places. HP Lovecraft, the picture in the house. Let's see, that was action 3. Then we'll exhaust Pathfinder to move back out to the basement hall. And action 4 will investigate. So unfortunately we are at even. -2 fails, so that's unfortunate, but we also had to get the we had to try to get the clue off of there, because Lily will be able to reveal one more patient confinement location. So Lily's turn will keep us right here as well. Action 1, I think, will bring Lily to this patient confinement, and we'll find patient confinement dreary cell, Shroud of 3, effectively 4, 1 clue. As an action, test Lore 2 to speak to the patient here. If you succeed, you are able to interpret her ravings. Remember that you know the guard's patrols. A chill gloom envelops this windowless cell. Being locked in here for a day would be torturous, let alone for months. That was action 1. Action 2, we are going to try to make that test. So Lily is at even, trying to do it. -1 says no, we don't get it. Now that action 1 was to move in. We're spending both clues that we had. Action 3, I think we'll run that test back. So we're still at even. -2 says even more, no, not happening. Right. Anyway, so that will do it for the investigation phase. Our only enemy is still the roach swarm, so nothing happens there. On that note, we'll go ahead and re-ready everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Monty will gain 1 resource and go up to 1. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 5. There we go, there's a resource. Monty will draw. Pickpocketing. 2 cost to play, agility on commit. After you evade an enemy, as a reaction, after you evade an enemy, exhaust pickpocketing to draw 1 card. Lily will draw. Another meditative trance that we didn't use earlier. Anyway, at the end of the round, Ooze and Filth goes away. Mythos Phase, Doom goes up to 4 on the agenda. Monty draws. Whispers in your head, Dread. Peril hidden. Revelation, secretly add Whispers in your head, Dread to your hand. You can't move more than once each turn. 2 actions to discard Whispers in your head, Dread from your hand. Say that 5 times fast. Lily draws. Corrosion. Discard item cards from play and or your hand with a total printed resource cost of at least X, where X is the shroud value of your location. If no cards, we had this last time. Unfortunately, this time we lose the butterfly swords, which is rather unfortunate, but that can't be helped here because the shroud is at least 3. Because the shroud is 3 and that's a cost of 3. So yeah, we have to lose that. Anyway, that will bring us out of the Mythos phase back into the investigation phase. We'll move over to Monty, and his turn will take us over to the map. Actions 1 and 2 are going to be to discard Whispers in your head, Dread from play, from his hand. Action 3... We'll run back, we'll try the investigate again, so we're up 1. We'll commit Pilfer to this for the lore icon to go up 2. Cultist is, as we saw earlier, is minus X, where X is the amount of horror on you. In this case, that's a 1. So Monty still passes and gets the clue, which for action 4, for Pathfinder, he'll spend that to move into this patient confinement. So we have a 50-50 shot of finding what we need. We'll spend the clue, which we did already, so let's find out what we have here. Alright, Shroud of 2, 1 clue. As an action, test Will X, where X is the amount of horror on you. If you succeed, you recognize the room. Remember that you recalled the way out. Fantastic, Monty. Nice work. Then action 4, I think we'll try to grab that clue off the location first. So we're at a 5 to a 2, so we're up 3. Minus 2 gets us the clue off the location, and it gives us a resource from Milan. Anyway, that will do it for Monty. At the end of his turn, because we did move a location away, we will get to... I think we will go ahead and draw a card. So Monty will draw. Eureka. Will, lore, agility on commit. If this skill test is successful, the investigator performing this test searches the top 3 cards of his or her deck for a card, draws it, and shuffles the deck. So that'll be helpful to have. Lily will run back the action on the location. So once again, we're even. I'm going to commit Eye of Chaos and Meditative Trance to go up 2. A 0 means we pass the test, so we'll put another resource marker on there so that we know the guard's patrols. Action 2, I will investigate. I'm down 1, but I'll commit Unexpected Courage to go up 1. Cultist, as we saw earlier, is minus X, where X is the amount of horror on you. Right now that's a -2, so Lily fails. And action 3 will actually move Lily up to the basement hall. So we don't actually need that. We actually didn't need that clue. I was going to try to maybe speed things up a little bit, try to save an action for the next turn. But alas, no dice there. So in the enemy phase, Roach Swarm is our only enemy in play. So we'll go ahead and re-ready everything. And I never flipped over Lily's action tokens, but that's fine. And then we'll move back up top for the Upkeep Phase. We're back up top for the Mythos Phase. Monty will gain 1 resource and go to 3. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 6. Monty will draw another Pickpocketing, which we have in his hand already. Lily will draw another Eye of Chaos, which we committed on that last test earlier. Alright, so Rogue, Mystic starting location. I've been pretty bad about keeping up with those, but anyway. Mythos Phase, we got our 5th Doom up on the agenda. Monty will draw a Maniac, which we saw earlier. He'll have to take... Oh! Yeah, we need to take this thing out pronto. So after Maniac engages you, take 1 damage and deal 1 damage to Maniac. So he takes a damage and a horror because he's got Hypochondria in play. But the Maniac does take a damage as well, so... Yeah, we need to get this moving. And then Lily draws Mad Patient, which spawns at the nearest asylum halls. Pray for the most remaining sanity, which it'll be going after Lily. Forced, when you attack Mad Patient, take 1 horror. This might be the only reason I'm okay with Butterfly Swords going away, but we need to find a new weapon for Lily desperately. But anyway, that will do it for the Mythos Phase. We're into the Investigation Phase now. Monty's turn will start us off at his play area. We need to evade that that Maniac right here. So for action 1, we're going to use Sneak By, which evade, and when this action begins, gain 2 resources. Being told not to do something was generally Winifred's cue to proceed as planned. So we'll gain the 2 resources from that, which I'm already up 4 trying to evade this. I'll commit Eureka to go up 5. So up 5 trying to evade. +1 lets us get by the Maniac, which is very helpful. So we'll put that on the location. And then the top 3 cards of Monty's deck. We get to take 1 of these. First card up. Buried Secrets, I don't want that. Card 2 is a Slip Away, which lets me evade, adding evade plus lore. If I succeed by 2 or more and the enemy is non-elite, it doesn't ready during the next upkeep phase. And Backstab. Fight using agility instead of combat. This attack deals +2 damage. I think, well, we need some way to get past that mad patient, so I think I'm going to take... I think we're actually going to take the slip away here. We'll add that to the hand. Give this a quick shuffle. And a cut. And then we'll exhaust Pathfinder, and we'll Pathfinder over to the map. Alright, Pathfinder will bring Monty down to the basement hall. Then for action 2, we'll spend his clue to move into the last patient confinement location. And we'll see probably Daniel's cell. Forced after patient confinement is revealed, advance to Act 2B. Daniel's windowless cell is hopelessly dank and grim. The walls are covered in erratic scribbling, which upon further inscription appears to be passages from the King in Yellow. We also get a clue there, but more importantly, we advance to Act 2B. Alright. 3 geese in a flock. When you enter his cell, you find Daniel huddled in a corner of the room, sobbing and rocking back and forth on the ground. No mask. No mask, he stammers over and over. You help him to his feet and try to console him, telling him that he is not crazy, that strange events have been occurring throughout town ever since the King in Yellow returned to Arkham. "It's Nigel," he exclaims, gripping you tightly. "Nigel made us speak his name. He made us speak the oath. And now he lives inside us, controlling us. Don't you understand?" he rambles on. "You spoke his name and the price was paid. Haster, Haster, O King. You believe you might understand more about the situation if you can calm him down, but you'll have to get him out of this asylum if you are to accomplish that. Choose an investigator at patient confinement, Daniel's cell. Put the set-aside Daniel Chesterfield card, asset side face up, into play under that investigator's control. Shuffle the encounter discard pile and each enemy beneath the act deck into the encounter deck." Okay, so we'll take a look at Daniel Chesterfield. Right. Is it the asset we want? Yes, asset side face up. Okay. Alright, so Daniel Chesterfield, he's not doing all too well. As a fast action, exhaust Daniel Chesterfield, give control of him to another investigator at your location. Forced, when you take horror, if at least one of that horror is not assigned to Daniel Chesterfield, take 1 damage. Forced, if Daniel Chesterfield leaves play, remove him from the game. 1 health, 3 sanity on soak. So we have to give him to Monty because Monty is the only one here. Alright, so now we go to our new act. Act 3A, planning the escape. With or without Daniel, you have to get out of this place as soon as you can. Ignore the text on the unrevealed side of Arkham Asylum locations. Objective: if investigators have performed 4 of the following, you must advance. Know the guards' patrols, set a fire in the kitchen, incited a fight amongst the patients, released a dangerous patient, recalled the way out, distracted the guards. So far we have done 2 of those. We have incited a fight, and we know the guards' patrols. So anyway, right. So we have 2 actions left from Monty, which will be action 3. Well, we've got to get him moving. We got to get this moving. So actually, you know what actions 3 and 4 might end up being now that I look at it? I think now I do want to discard Hypochondria, because we're going to start, I suspect we're going to start taking a lot of damage, and Monty Basically, being +1 horror on those attacks is probably not a place I want to be in with those. But that will do it for Monty. Since we moved 2 locations away from his starting location, we get to take a resource and draw a card. So he will go up to 6. And then Monty will draw Tennessee Sour Mash, and we'll look at this in a second. Sorry about the abrupt cut there. I had to change out my battery. Anyway, let's take a quick look at Tennessee Sour Mash. 3 cost to play, will on commit. Uses 2 supplies. As an action, exhaust Tennessee Sour Mash and spend 1 supply. You get +2 will for a skill test on a treachery card. Action, discard Tennessee that's a fast action. This is a regular action. Discard Tennessee Sour Mash, fight. You get +3 combat for this attack. So that's in Monty's hand now. Lily's turn. I think for action 1, Lily's going to go into patient confinement. She's going to test Will X, where X is the number of horror on her for action 2. She's right now a 3 to a 2. We're going to commit Guts to make that a 5 to a 2, so we're up 3. A 0 gets us the action there, which means we have now done 1, 2, 3? Yep, 3 of those. Okay, but we get to draw a card from Guts. So Lily will draw a Vicious Blow. Combat on commit. If this skill test is successful during an attack, this attack deals +1 damage. And I'll go through the flavor text when I actually commit it. Action 3 will move Lily back down to the basement hall. And then that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, none of our enemies are hunters, so nobody's alarmed there. Anyway, we'll go ahead and start re-readying everything, including our Maniac, Investigator Minis, Pathfinder, action tokens, and we'll move back up top for the Upkeep phase. Monty and Lily will each gain 1 resource and go to 7. Monty draws another evade, another sneak by, so we used this earlier. Let me look at Monty's hand size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, never mind. Lily draws Dark Pact. Oh, great. Deal 2 damage to an investigator at your location. Forced, when the game ends or you are eliminated, if Dark Pact is still in your hand, remove Dark Pact from your deck, search the collection for the price of failure, and add it to your deck. Wonderful. Okay, so Mythos phase, we go up to 6 Doom on the agenda. Monty draws Dance of the Yellow King. Oh boy. Revelation, if there are no lunatic enemies in play, Dance of the Yellow King gains Surge, and at the very end we have 2. Yeah, we have 2. So, right, we have to test Will 3. If you fail, the nearest lunatic enemy readies, moves, 1 location at a time until it reaches your location, engages you, and makes an immediate attack. Oh dear. And Will 3, Monty's down 2, so I think I have to use Lucky Cigarette Case and Tennessee Sour Mash just to get to even. -2 basically tells that to get bent. So I think the enemy we're going to move is going to be the Maniac. So we're going to move the Maniac 1 location at a time until it reaches you. So Monty will take 1 damage, which he'll put on Leo, because it's not considered direct, and then he'll deal 1 damage to the Maniac. And then he still gets attacked anyway, so Monty will actually take that attack. himself. Lily draws another Roach Swarm, X23, where X is the shroud value of Roach Swarm's location. Fantastic. Okay, so... we have a bit of a problem on our hands here, folks. So I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go into the investigation phase, and we've got to start with Monty at his play area. Getting rid of that maniac just became job number 1. So, action 1, we're going to use the bullwhip to try to do it. So we're using agility instead of combat. We're up 2 right now. I'll commit to a pickpocketing to go up 3. Skull is -1. If you fail, randomly choose an enemy from among the set-aside monster enemies and place it beneath the act deck without looking at it. We don't fail, but we will exhaust the bullwhip to take the maniac out. And then we'll Pathfinder over to the map. Pathfinder will bring us out to the basement hall with Lily. Action 2, we will... I had kind of a plan, but that seems to have fallen off the wayside. Action 2, I think I will go ahead and engage the Roach Swarm off of Lily. Then action 3, I'll try to sneak by it, so we'll evade gaining 2 resources, which will bring Monty up to 9, and he's up 2 trying to evade it. Actually, he's up 2 trying to evade it. -1 evades the Roach Swarm. Action 3, he'll move down to the Asylum Hall's Eastern Patient Wing and make friends with the Mad Patient. And Action 4, he will spend the 2 resources that he got from Sneak By to try to slip away. So he's going to evade plus lore, and if he succeeds by 2 or more, and the evaded enemy is non-elite, it doesn't ready during the next upkeep phase. So lore plus agility is 9, to 3 we're up 6. Elder Sign, because this is still the agenda, we'll refresh our memory on Monty's Elder Sign, but it's +1. If you succeed, if you started this round 1 or more locations away from your current location, gain a resource or draw a card. So the slip away is successful, which means the Mad Patient will not ready during the upkeep phase, so we'll get a free turn to get out of there, at least with that enemy. And then Monty will draw. Swift Reflexes. Fast. Play during any investigator's turn except during an action. Immediately take an action as if it were your turn. This action does not count toward the number of actions you can take each turn. Then for action 4, it was action 1 to attack the maniac. Pathfinder, action 2, action 3, slip away. Action 4 will move him back to the Western Patient Wing. And then because Monty started 3 locations away, he will gain another resource and draw a card. So Monty will draw. Lucky Cigarette Case. Reaction: after you succeeded a skill test by 2 or more, exhaust Lucky Cigarette Case to draw a card. Takes the accessory, 2 resources to play, and a will on commit. Alright, that will do it for Monty. Lily will stay right here at the map. Action 1, she will move down to the Western Western Patient wing. Action 2, she'll move over to the Eastern Patient, she'll move down to the east first, then move to the Western Patient wing. And action 3, since I still don't want this in her hand, I'm going to play Dark Pact and hit Monty for 2 damage. It's unfortunate, but I don't think there's really a good choice here. But anyway, that'll bring Monty up to 5 out of 8 damage. That will do it for Lily in the investigation phase. Enemy phase, we have no hunter enemies in play. So we'll go ahead and start readying everything. The Mad Patient is evaded because of slip away, so he won't ready until the next upkeep phase. Or until the next upkeep phase after the one that we're about to move up top. After I flip everything over. So the Mad Patient won't ready as we're moving up top right now for the upkeep phase. Monty will gain 1 resource and go to 9. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 6. Monty will draw. Backstab, attack, fight using agility instead of combat. This attack deals +2 damage. Combat and agility on commit. Lily draws. Ward of Protection. 1 cost to play, question mark on commit. Fast, play when you draw a non-weakness treachery card. Cancel that card's revelation effect, then take 1 horror. Going into the Mythos phase, we advance the agenda. So now, Elder Signs are back to being minus... The first Elder Sign is back to being -5. The Yellow Sign. In the back of your mind, a force beckons. Have you seen it? It calls to you. Glimpsing something in your peripheral vision, you turn and find a familiar symbol peering back at you wherever you look. It is etched upon the doors, drawn on the walls, painted on the patient's canvases. You cannot escape it. The lead investigator must randomly choose an enemy from among the set-aside monster enemies and shuffle it into the encounter deck without looking at it. Check the campaign log. If Constance Dumaine is not listed under VIP's Slain, search the collection for Constance Dumaine, a little too sociable, and spawn her in the garden. We did slay her during the house party. So we'll grab the monster pile. We'll shuffle these up. And we'll have to shuffle one of these into the encounter deck. So we'll take a cut, and we'll shuffle that one into the deck. All right. Agenda 3A, his domain. Flee. Flee while you still can. Forced, when you would place an enemy beneath the act deck, shuffle that enemy into the encounter deck instead, and we need 8 doom to advance. So Monty draws. Whispers in your head, anxiety. Peril hidden. Revelation, secretly add Whispers in your head anxiety to your hand. You can't trigger fast action abilities. Oh, great. 2 actions, discard Whispers in your head anxiety from your hand. Lily draws. Gift of Madness, Misery. Peril hidden. Secretly add yada yada yada. You can't trigger fast action abilities on locations. As an action, randomly choose one enemy from among the set-aside monster enemies and place it beneath the act deck without looking at it. This is effect shuffle. This is actually shuffle it into the encounter deck instead. Discard Gift of Madness, Misery from your hand. Wonderful. So, now we're into a new investigation phase. Monty will be our first investigator this round, and his turn will start us at his play area. Actions 1 and 2 will be to get rid of the Whispers in Your Head anxiety from Monty's hand. And now as a fast action, we'll Pathfinder over to the map. Monty will Pathfinder into the mess hall and make friends with the roach swarm. Action 3, he'll attack it with the bullwhip, so he is actually up 3. Here's a Shroud of 2, and he's attacking with agility, which is 5, so he's up 3. Cultist, which as we remember is minus X, where X is the amount of horror on you, which is 2. So that's a successful test. He'll exhaust the whip to make the roach swarm go away. Then as a fast action, he'll pay 2 resources. Actually, yeah, as a fast action, he'll pay 2 resources and play Swift Reflexes. So he's basically interrupting his turn to take an action that doesn't count toward his turn. So the action from Swift Reflexes is going to be to investigate. He's at a 5. He's once again at a 5 to a 2. He's up 3. -1 gets him a clue, but he's going to have to discard. So I will discard his other copy of Pickpocketing. And then for action 4, we'll move him into the kitchen since we still get to ignore the text on the unrevealed side of locations. The narrow door in the back of the mess hall is locked. The scent that strikes you from behind the door is foul and repugnant. We find Shroud of 2, 2 clues. As an action, if there are no clues on the kitchen, test Will 2. If you succeed, remember that you set a fire in the kitchen. Dirty dishes fill the sinks and cover the countertops. An unidentifiable sludge boils on the stove. So we'll get the 2 clues for that. And then that will do it for Monty's turn. Since he started 2 locations, since he moved 2 locations away from his start, he'll gain a resource and draw. Deduction. Level 2, 2 lore on commit. Forced, or if the skill test is successful while investigating a location, discover 1 additional clue at that location, 2 additional clues instead if it succeeds by 2 or more. I knew I had seen this symbol before. I must warn the others before it is too late. Alright, that will do it for Monty. Lily's turn. Such a bonehead. I could have awarded a Ward of Protection to the Gift of Madness Misery, but I don't think this scenario is going to last too much longer. So for action 1, she'll move into the mess hall. Action 2, she'll get drawn to the... she'll get drawn to the flame. We'll try to get some of these clues. Get some victory points for some experience. Lily will draw. Ooze and Filth. Revelation, put Ooze and Filth into play next to the agenda deck. Each location gets +1 Shroud. At the end of the round, discard Ooze and Filth. Now, fortunately, we do get the clues off of the location and we don't have to discard because the text on Mess Hall specifies after you investigate. We actually didn't investigate the location. Let me go through the flavor text real quick. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. H.P. Lovecraft, The Call of Cthulhu. Now, as I was saying, we actually didn't investigate the mess hall. We discovered the clues there, so we don't have to discard. Then action 3, the only way Monty's passing a Will... Well, Monty actually might have a decent chance at a Will 2 test, but... I'll bring Lily in here anyway, since she'll probably be better suited. She might be better suited to take that test, but anyway, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Enemy phase, no hunter enemies in play. So now we start to get into the upkeep phase. Mad Patient readies now. Flip over the action tokens. Re-ready all of Monty's stuff. Flip over our investigator minis. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Monty will gain 1 resource and go back up to 9. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 7. Monty will draw. Buried Secrets, not something I wanted to see. Revelation, put Buried Secrets into play next in your threat area. If your location can be investigated, you can't move except by scenario card effects. As an action, investigate. If you succeed, instead of discovering clues, discard Buried Secrets. If you fail, you may take 2 horror to shuffle it into your deck. Fantastic. Lily draws. Rite of Seeking uses 3 charges. As an action, spend 1 charge, investigate, using will instead of lore. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue at this location. If you reveal a bad symbol during this test, after this test resolves, lose all remaining actions, and immediately end your turn. So we need to be very careful with that. Then at the end of round, Ooze and Filth goes away. And we go into the Mythos phase. First Doom on what looks to be our last agenda of the game. Monty draws. Dance of the Yellow King. We saw this earlier, and there are lunatic enemies in play. Right, so let's see if we can even get up to even on a will test. Well, we'll have to commit the lucky cigarette case to go down 1. And Lily actually is going to cancel that. So she's going to spend 1 resource and play Ward of Protection. To cancel that card's Revelation effect, then take 1 horror. So that'll bring Lily up to 3 horror. Hopefully we don't draw something even more dangerous with Lily. Lily draws. Surge. If you have at least 3 horror on you, lose 1 action, of course. So Lily has 2 actions this round, but she still surges into Whispers in Your Head, Dismay. Peril hidden, Revelation, secretly add Whispers in Your Head, Dismay to your hand. You can't commit skill cards to skill tests. 2 actions to discard Whispers in Your Head, Dismay from your hand. Fantastic. Okay. Alright, so we didn't commit the lucky cigarette case. That will do it for the Mythos phase. We'll move the starting tokens over here. Investigation phase next. We'll start off with Monty once again, and his turn will take us over to the map. Action 1, we're going to investigate on using Buried Secrets. So we're going to be doing a 5 to a 2 because of Milan. We're up 3. Skull, as we saw earlier, is -1. If you fail, instead, randomly choose an enemy from among the set-aside monster enemies and shuffle it into the encounter deck without looking at it. But we succeeded, so we get to get rid of Buried Secrets, and we get a resource from Milan, which brings him up to 10. Action 2 will be a proper investigation, and we'll commit deduction to this. So we're up 5. We're at 5, 7 to 2. We're up 5, trying to get both clues. -2 gets us both clues. That's a Will 2 test. He's down 1 going into it. I think he's going to have to try it. So for action 3, Monty will try the Will test, and he'll commit Lucky Cigarette Case to get to even. Lily can't help him because of the Peril card in her hand, because of the hidden card in her hand, the Whispers. So we're at even. Skull, as we saw, is -1, so we do have to shuffle a monster into the deck. Right. Then we will Pathfinder away, and action 4 will end up at the Asylum Halls. So once again, Monty's special ability triggers, which means he'll end up gaining a resource, bringing him up to 11, and drawing a card. So he will draw Lockpicks. Okay. We saw that earlier, but we had to discard it. Now for Lily, action 1, she's going to try that will test. She's up 1. Actually, she can trigger... No, she can't trigger that, actually, so never mind. I think action 1 is going to have to be to discard this Gift of Madness Misery, so we'll have to choose another monster and shuffle it into the deck. So I already grabbed a monster from the pile off camera. I forgot Lily had that Gift of Madness Misery in her hand. Now this is probably where it's coming back to bite us. We'll give that a cut. And we're all good there. Now Lily will try to take that test. So she's up 1. Alright, thankfully she was up 1, so burn baby burn. Which means now we have done 4 of the... Which means now we've done 4 of the planning the escape. We just set a fire. We know the guards' patrols. We recalled the way out, and we incited a fight amongst the patients. So we get to advance. A way out. An orderly's scream echoes across the hall. Within moments, an alarm rings loudly throughout the institution. Nurses and guards rush through the asylum in a desperate attempt to control the situation. You feel dazed and your vision is spotty, as though you've been struck by something heavy. The walls blur together and twist. Creatures begin to emerge out of crevices and corners that did not exist moments before. Shuffle the encounter discard pile and each enemy beneath the act deck into the encounter deck. If at least 3 monster enemies were shuffled into the encounter deck by this effect, the investigator with the lowest will discards cards from the top of the encounter deck until a monster enemy is discarded and draws that enemy. Okay, so we are shuffling... Oh, God. We're shuffling 1, 2, 3, 4 monsters into the deck, which also means Monty's going to have to discard cards along with the discard pile. Okay, so we are shuffling... We're shuffling 4 monsters from the set-aside stuff in... And then we discard until we hit a monster. This is totally going to have a very unhappy ending for Monty. But anyway, that will be the end of Lily's turn once we get through this. Alright, we'll give that a cut. And then we discard until we hit then Monty discards until we hit a monster and draws it. So it's going to be engaged with him right off the bat. Not a monster. Not a monster. Monster. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so it's a good thing I got rid of Hypochondria finally. Spawn of Holly, 4/4/2, Pray Most Horror, Retaliate, so if you fail an attack, it'll attack you back. Forced, after you successfully evade Spawn of Holly by 2 or less, take 1 horror. 1 health, 1 damage, and 2 sanity on attack. So that makes friends with Monty. Right, and that was the end of Lily's turn. So enemy phase, Monty gets slapped for 1 and 2. He'll take the damage. I'm taking a bit of a risk here. And I'll put the horror on Daniel. Okay, so yeah, that will do it for the... Okay, so that's the end of the enemy phase, because that's the only relevant enemy right now. We do go through our new act. So I'll go through that before we set everything up. No Asylum. All hell has broken loose. Ignore the text on the unrevealed side of Arkham Asylum locations. Garden gains action. If there is no ready enemy in the garden, resign. Finally, a way out. Objective. If each undefeated investigator has resigned, advance. Okay, so now we need to get to the garden and Gitfo. But anyway, that will do it for the enemy phase. So now we'll go ahead and get everything reset. Lily gets that back. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Monty gains 1 resource and goes to, what is that, 12. So I'll get a 10 resource marker for that. I don't often get to show off these 10 resource markers from orbits. Lily gains 1 resource and goes to 7. Monty draws. Eureka. Okay, we'll probably need that this turn. Lily draws. Voice of Ra. 0 cost to play, will on commit. Gain 1 resource, reveal 3 random tokens from the Chaos Bag. For each bad symbol revealed, gain an additional 2 resources. Probably not something we need right now, but Mythos Phase, second Doom on the agenda. Monty draws. A straitjacket. Oh, wonderful. Not something I wanted to see here. So, if there is no copy of straitjacket in your threat area, put straitjacket into play in your threat area as an asset that takes up a body and 2 hand slots. Return each asset in those slots to your hand. This card cannot leave play except by the ability below. 2 actions, discard straitjacket. What are you doing? I'm not crazy. So unfortunately that does lose us the bullwhip, which we might be able to get away without that. Lily draws. Oh, wrong deck. Right deck. Lily draws. Walls closing in. Revelation test Will X, where X is the shroud value of your location. If you fail, you must either take 1 horror for each point you fail by, or randomly choose 1 enemy from among the set-aside monster enemies and place it beneath the act deck, aka shuffle it into the deck without looking at it. This is actually going to be take 1 horror for each point you fail by because we have no monsters left to shuffle in. Unfortunately, Lily still can't commit cards to skill tests, so she's going to have to make this test up 1. -2 says no, so Lily will have to take a horror on that. Which is unfortunate, but that can't be helped. Right, so in the investigation phase, I think we're going to have to start off with Monty, and we're going to have to start in his play area. Evading the Spawn of Holly needs to be the order of the day. So action 1, Monty will try to do that. Right now he's up 3, and I will use Eureka to go up 4. -2 lets us evade the spawn of Holly, but we do take a horror because we evaded it by 2 or less. So we'll get the horror out for Monty, but we do get to search his deck for the top 3 of his deck for a card. So let's see what we find. Card 1. Lone Wolf, limit 1 per investigator. When your turn begins, if there are no other investigators at your location, gain a resource. Next up, another copy of Tennessee Sour Mash, which we saw earlier. And Pilfer. Investigate using agility instead of lore. If you succeed, discover 2 additional clues at your location. I think we'll grab Pilfer, actually, on this one. What the? Oh, that's the top. Never mind. I thought I was having problems with the sleeves. Okay. Alright, so we'll cut that. And then we'll Pathfinder over to the map. We'll Pathfinder up to the yard. Then action 2 will be to move up to the garden. We'll see what we find here. Shroud of 1, 2 clues. If there are no clues on the garden, test agility 2. If you succeed, remember that you distracted the guards. 2 guards in white uniforms stand by the gate to the garden, keeping watch. But we also have to remember that because there's no ready enemy at the garden gains if there's no ready enemy in the garden, resign. Finally, a way out. But I think we might, the way Lily's deck has been drawing today, I think we're probably going to need some help there to make sure an enemy leaves play. So for actions 3 and 4, Monty will discard Straitjacket, and then as a fast action coming out of it, he will replay the Trusty Bullwhip. And then because he moved 2 locations away from his start location, he gains a resource going back up to 11 and draws a card. So Monty will draw another Pathfinder, which we probably don't need except as maybe a commit. Anyway, that will do it for Monty. Lily's turn is going to be very simple. Action 1, Action 2, Action 3. Trying to get out of here as fast as we can. But anyway, that will do it for the enemy phase, or for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, nothing happens here because we have no hunters in play, thankfully. So we'll go ahead and start readying everything, like the spawn of Holly. Then our action tokens as well. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Monty will gain 1 resource and go to 12. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 8. Monty will draw. Lone Wolf, limit 1 per investigator. When your turn begins, if there are no other investigators at your location, gain 1 resource. 1 cost to play, agility on commit. Lily draws. Blessed Blade, 3 cost to play, combat on commit. If Blessed Blade, as an action, if Blessed Blade is ready, fight. You get +1 combat for this attack. If a Bless or Elder Sign token is revealed during this attack deals +1 damage. Before revealing cast tokens for this attack, you may exhaust Blessed Blade to add 1 Bless token to the Chaos bag. Okay, that brings us into the Mythos phase, where we get our 3rd Doom on the agenda. Monty draws. Oh boy, Asylum Gorger. 4/5/4. Spawn Basement Halls. Hunter. Asylum Gorger cannot make attacks of opportunity and cannot attack during the same phase it moved from its Hunter keyword. 3 and 3. That spawns in the Basement Hall. Lily draws. Gift of Madness Misery. We saw this earlier, which kind of screwed us up, truth be told. But anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. So into the investigation phase, I think it'll be pretty simple. We'll start with Lily and we'll move over to the map. Right, action 1 for Lily will be to discard Gift of Madness Misery with the action ability on the card. Randomly choose one enemy from among the monsters and shuffle it into the deck, but we don't have any monster enemies. Action 2 will move up to the garden. Action 3, she'll resign. And then Monty's turn will be similarly simple, as he too will resign, since there's no ready enemy in the garden. So we get to advance. If you took the keys by force, read the following, which we did. As you attempt to escape, you are spotted by the nurse you attacked earlier, leading a group of guards. There they are. Quickly, restrain them. R2. Sorry, I didn't mean to jar the camera there, but we will move back up top to resolve the scenario. Let's go ahead and wrap this scenario up.
Resolution 2. Each defeated investigator should resolve investigator defeat first. You are confronted by a number of orderlies and security guards who bar your escape. Feeling cornered and trapped, you have no choice but to fight your way through them. As you struggle to escape, several of the nearby patients see their opportunity and attack the guards with a crazed fury. Nurse Heather shrieks and retreats, and in the ruckus you are able to escape. Bruised and battered, but free once more. It will take some time for your wounds to heal, but you have no time for that yet. In your campaign log, record that the investigators were attacked as they escaped the asylum.
Okay, so I'll pause and make a note.
Investigators suffers one physical trauma as they are assaulted by the asylum's guards.
Okay, so now we do definitely need to keep an eye on Lily's trauma, because that brings Lily up to 3 physical trauma. So I think, well, I'll have to have a think about this.
Investigator earns experience equal to the victory X value of each card in the victory display.
Alright, so we'll go over to the map and check to see we have 1, 2, 3 experience. So each investigator earns that 3 experience. We didn't add any monsters to the victory display.
If Constance Dumaine, a little too sociable, is in the victory display, record her name in your campaign log under VIP's Slain. Remove all cultist, rune, and elder thing tokens from the chaos bag. Then, add 2 rune tokens to the chaos bag. Proceed to Interlude 2, Lost Soul.
Alright, so I think, okay, the envelope's back here. Alright, so as we go into the chaos bag, there are the 2 cultists coming out of the bag. And here are the 2 runes going in. So we've got that all set out. Which means now we go into Interlude 2, Lost Soul. And once again, as usual, if you guys start hearing background noise, I'm starting to clean up.
Interlude 2, Lost Soul. If the allied version of Daniel Chesterfield was in play when the scenario ended, proceed to Daniel Survived. If the lunatic version of Daniel Chesterfield was in play when the scenario ended, proceed to Daniel was possessed. If neither version of Daniel Chesterfield was in play when the scenario ended, proceed to Daniel did not survive. Daniel did not survive.
Okay, actually, you pause that. So the ally version is in play, which means Daniel survived is what we want.
Daniel survived.
There we go.
You decide to lay low for some time in Ma's boarding house and hide Daniel from the authorities, although you're unsure how long you'll be able to stay in Arkham with an escaped asylum patient. Daniel is a loose cannon, dazed and unresponsive one moment, and screaming for his life the next. It takes several days for him to realize he's no longer institutionalized, which for some reason makes him even more terrified. He's coming for me, he rambles, sometimes for hours at a time. Finally, during an unusually warm and starry night, Daniel is calm enough to open up to you. The King in Yellow. It's not just a play, he explains. It's a being named Haster, and he's already claimed me. But there's still time for you. You are not yet possessed. You have yet to speak the oath. Whatever you do, do not speak his name. Do not give in. You ask him about the strange events that have been happening across town, and of the cultists and creatures you encountered. They are trying to find Carcosa, he says matter-of-factly. You recognize the name as the fictional city from the play, the one the King in Yellow rules over. They want to release Haster from his prison, but you can open the way to Carcosa before they do. You can steal Haster for good. He grips you tightly as he rants, quickly, before the stranger discovers our plan. Hours later, Daniel is incoherent and responsive once more. You take a long walk to ease your thoughts, mulling over this new information. You're unsure what to make of his wild claims. Before you can make a decision about what to do next, you return to find the door to your room broken open. Daniel lies in a heap on the ground, his face colorless and body limp. Judging from the bruising around his neck, you surmise that he has been choked to death. Each investigator earns 2 additional experience as they gain insight into the machinations of the Tattered King. The investigators must decide, choose one. Possession? Oaths? There must be another explanation for all this. Proceed to ignore the warning. We must heed Daniel's warning. We must not speak the name of the King in Yellow. Proceed to heed the warning.
Okay, so we earned 2 additional experience for the insights into the machinations of the Tattered King. So now we have to decide, do we heed the warning or do we ignore the warning? Now, looking at our investigators, we don't have a lot of sanity to play with. Monty has 6, Lily has 7. So I think we're going to heed the warning.
Heed the warning. For hours, you struggle with this insight into the King in Yellow. What is true? What is real? Only you can sort through this madness. In your campaign log, record that you heeded Daniel's warning. Mark 2.
Okay. You heeded Daniel's warning.
In your campaign log. Each investigator earns 1 additional experience as they gain insight into the machinations of the Tattered King. For the remainder of the campaign, anytime an investigator speaks the name of Haster aloud during a scenario, or during the setup of a scenario, that investigator must immediately take 1 horror. Proceed to Scenario 5, A Phantom of Truth.
We will proceed to... Okay, so that will do it for the Unspeakable Oath. Now, there is one thing I do want to mention before we start moving the campaign forward again. When I made these audio recordings, I didn't have a Path to Carcosa campaign active at the time. So, everything is speaking the name of the King in Yellow in there. So, the way I'm going to handle that is for the audio recordings, I'm not going to take horror from that. Because, like I said, when I made those recordings, there was no campaign active at the time. But that will do it for the Unspeakable Oath. So later this week, we'll upgrade the decks we got, the decks with the experience we have, and have the tarot reading for the next scenario. And then we'll continue the winter campaign with the 5th scenario, A Phantom of Truth. Also, in the upgrades video later this week, we need to have another chat about the channel. For now, thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.